Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Philly Special Podcast. I'm your host, Colin Rudisell. This is the podcast for Eagles fans by an Eagles fan. And yeah, it's been a couple weeks since you've seen this mug, since you've heard this voice. I've been on vacation with my girlfriend out in San Francisco. We've been having a blast out there. Saw the Giants break their record for most wins in a season, which is awesome. They made the postseason. They ended up losing, chucked out a Warriors game. It was fun. Saw Steph Curry, saw LeBron. Not a lot of football going on, though, out there. As a matter of fact, a lot of the places we were staying, we didn't have very good connection. So honestly, I'm a little out of date with some of these games. I saw the highlights for the Cowboys game and the Chiefs game. I tried to watch as much as the Chiefs game as I could from where I was at. But yeah, it's not perfect. And it seems like for a few of those games, it's kind of okay that I missed it. And I caught the Tampa Bay game, obviously, and that's why we're here. We're back to our weekly schedule, which is great. I miss doing this, and there's a lot to talk about because we're right around the quarter mark on the season, right? And there's probably the toughest part of our schedule behind us, some favorable matchups coming up. So where does that put us for the rest of the season? We're going to look into that. We got a lot to dive into, man. I mean, we're just kind of going into evaluation mode on where Philadelphia is going to be and where they're at right now. So without further ado, let's dive a little bit into this Tampa Bay game. It seemed like on paper, I've already said this is a game that they're probably not going to win, right? I mean, you're facing the former Super Bowl champions, current Super Bowl champions, rather, former Super Bowl champions many times in Tom Brady, and a high-powered explosive offense, as well as a formidable run defense. And yeah, that definitely showed in the first half. It was really, really tough sledding for just about everybody involved. The defense was having a really tough time with the pass game. It seemed like two drives in a row. Their first two drives, they just went right down the field, no problems at all. And the run game, which I thought was kind of surprising. I thought we were at least going to contain Fournette, and he absolutely clobbered them both in the pass game and on the ground. Brady picked them apart. But to be fair, I actually think in the second half, the defense handled it quite well. And they actually kept us in the game with a few big plays, a key fourth down stop, interception. I mean, big plays, absolutely, for the guys. And of course, it was the offense that just couldn't get things going, man. They were never in sync. And we say this time and time again now, I don't know how many weeks in a row, where you just have to run the football. I'm sorry. Look, I know there are like big time Eagles beat writers that are saying it's not necessarily the run game. It's just they're not optimizing the pass game. That's BS, dude. I mean, you have to have a run game to open up the pass game. If you're one dimensional, you're missing out on literally half your offense. And not only that, you're telling the defense that you only have one part of your offense. So guess what they're going to be looking for? The pass every single time. And that's what we gave them. I mean, they almost, and they might have actually set a record for the least amount of rushing attempts just a couple of games ago. And you have Miles Sanders. This isn't a bad running back. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not Dalvin Cook. He's not Zeke. But he's a good running back, and he's certainly capable of taking on 15, 20 carries a game. And instead we give him like 5. And Gainwell as well is another one that's come on really strong on this rookie campaign. So it's not like the options aren't there. It's just Sirianni is choosing not to use it. And it's mind-boggling to me. It seems like in place of it, especially in the last game, it was evident, they would rather run the quick screens and the wide receiver screens instead of the run game. And it didn't work. And it didn't work for a lot of reasons. The blocking wasn't there. People were confused sometimes on the assignment. We had illegal men downfield because Hurts was taking too long. The defense was picking it up and guys were getting clocked. It's a terrible solution to have in place of the run game. It's just stupid. And I think Sirianni started to figure it out at the end of the game. And as we saw, they probably had their best drive of the season at the end of the game against Tampa Bay. And it was because they handed the ball off and they opened up the pass game through the run game. Now, I don't think that's a testament to Tampa Bay's run defense isn't as good as they say. I think it's a testament to they were all in on the pass as the Eagles were the whole game. So when they started to run, it was a shock. Like, oh my God, they're actually deciding to use the offense in ways other than just throwing it. So yeah, that was good to see. Hopefully they carry that over because It's not an easy matchup against Las Vegas either. But to finish off with Tampa Bay, at the end of the day, they were still in the game. It came down to stopping them on a fourth down, getting the ball back, and potentially going to have a game-winning or game-tying drive. And that is where you want to be against arguably the best team in football. And the defending Super Bowl champion. So it's not bad. It's not good. You would have rather have won one of those last three games. I mean, I know they beat Carolina, which is great. They didn't look great in the game, but at least they walked away with a W. But between Dallas, not New England, Kansas City, and who the hell they just played? Tampa Bay. You'd like to have had one of those, right? And they didn't have any. And they got absolutely clobbered by Dallas, obviously. They played Kansas City well, and they played Tampa Bay well. I use that term very loosely because there was definitely things that need to be improved on. And in my opinion, the number one thing going forward that's going to have to be improved on is the play calling. And I've already touched on why, because it's just infuriating to see them pass every single time. And it's not even close. I mean, they fake a handoff and nobody's biting on it. You can see it. And I think it's getting to Hurts too, because he's barely selling it. And he knows he's going to pass. And everybody and their grandma knows that they're going to pass on the defensive side of the ball. And what's really infuriating is up until that last drive for Philadelphia is when they did hand it off, more times than not, Sanders was ripping off 5-6 yards, if not more than that. And then to Sirianni, that's like, okay, cool. Now they're going to think we're going to run. So we're going to pass it 5 more times in a row. You just can't do that. And hopefully through tough games against tough opponents, he's learned. And now that we're starting to ease into the easier stuff, we can see a little bit more variety in that offense that isn't just pass all the time. Play calling. Worst thing the Eagles have going for them right now, in my opinion. Number 2 is Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts is still progressing. He's still young. He's still learning. He's had his fair share of tough games now, and especially missing top-tier offensive linemen. We saw it last year with Wentz. Hurts, no pun intended. You don't want to have missing pieces that big, no pun intended again, like Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, because when you don't have those guys, it's going to be bad news for Jalen Hurts. And he's seen it. He's been under pressure. It's been rough for the kid. Now, I'm not giving him any excuses with that being said, because my problem with Jalen Hurts is he's not going through his progressions. And I don't know if it's because he's scared, because he's missing those linemen, because he's taking some hits, but he'll take the snap. If it's an RPO, that is what it is. I'm sick of the RPO as well. But they're looking at his hot route and he's looking at his first assignment, and that's it. And if he can't find one of those two, he's scrambling for his life. It doesn't matter if there's a lineman in his face or if he's got all day to pass it. He's trying to find a hole and he's trying to run for his life. And what's even more infuriating with that is he tries to kind of do what you're supposed to do as a quarterback. When you're scrambling out, you keep your eyes downfield. Somebody pops open because defenders are coming to try to stop you from running. You just throw it right over their head. But he ends up just making bad decisions. And we almost saw him throw an interception in the Tampa Bay game that was unwarranted. And you just have to make better decisions, especially as a quarterback who's basically having an audition year this year. Because if you look at the picks coming up, we're going to get into that. But if you look at the picks coming up, there's a very good chance the Eagles can take a quarterback this year. Very good chance. So that's my biggest problem. Hurts just needs to hang in the pocket. He needs to look around. He needs to go through his entire read before he decides to scramble and run for his life. So that's just something you have to get better at as a quarterback. And I think the more time he has out on the field and the more plays he sees against top tier defenses is going to help. The other thing that's going to help is the first thing I mentioned, and that's Nick Sirianni calling better plays so people don't know every single time that it's a pass and his receivers are completely swarmed and covered. That's probably another problem. Nobody gets open because everybody knows it's going to be a pass. You have to open up the pass play with the run. I'll stop saying that now, but really drive that home. Yes, Jalen Hurts is an issue. The offensive line is starting to get healthy, luckily. Brooks still a little bit of ways away, but Lane Johnson's supposed to be coming back this week. That is big because that right side, especially right up that right guard slot, right tackle slot, has been absolutely mauling and getting to Jalen Hurts right in his, whatever the opposite of the blind side is, front side, I don't know, right in front of him is where that rush is coming every single time. So luckily, we'll have Mailata, we'll have Johnson back. Hopefully, he can have a little bit more time to find himself in that pocket and get comfortable and find open receivers. The defense, man, there's a lot to love. The defensive line, per the usual, is really good. Darius Slay is starting to get involved a lot more with interceptions and stuff. And just being a factor as he does. Nelson's been great too. They got McLeod back, so that's great. My only complaint is they just get slow starts. They get the team down by 14 points, 10 points. And the way the offense also getting slow starts, but really just slow games up until the fourth quarter, it's tough to come back. It's tough to play from behind. And that's pretty much what they've been doing the last few games. It's only worked out once, against a relatively bad team. I don't know, kind of middle of the road, I would say Carolina is at this point. But still, it's no way to play. I would like to see more of, and, this is asking a lot, obviously. I'd like to see more of what happened in week 1 against Atlanta, where it was just go, go, go on both sides of the ball, and everybody was looking great. Maybe we can get back to that with the more favorable stuff coming up in the schedule. So I'm going to pull this up real quick. I know the next game for the Eagles is against the Raiders. To me, the Raiders are sneaky good. I really think the Raiders are a sneaky, sneaky good team because they just find ways to stay in games and win them. Bears game discluded because they got absolutely trashed by the Bears, which is why, as a bettor, I'm staying away from this game completely because you don't know which team you're going to get. When the Eagles play at their best, I think they can beat the Raiders. When the Raiders play at their best, they easily beat the Eagles. And when either plays at their worst, it's a crapshoot, So it's a weird game. It's a game I think we can win. It's a game I think they need to win, potentially. Because here's the thing. You're looking at the Eagles record, right? We've got 2 wins, and we've got, 4 losses now? We got San Francisco, we got Dallas, we got Kansas City, and we got Tampa Bay. So we're sitting at 2-4. Not very good, right? But I'm looking at the schedule, and here's what we still have going on, right? So we have the Lions. We have the Broncos, who I'm telling you are not very good. I'm telling you they're not very good. I know their record says otherwise. They're not very good. Check out who they played their first 3 games, and you'll know what I'm saying. The Lions, the Broncos, the Giants twice, Washington twice, and the Jets. There's 7 games right there I think the Eagles can win. And if they win those 7, they're going to end the season with a winning record. And those are just games that, those are easy games. You know what I mean? These are teams with losing records that are missing big players. When you look at, Washington without Fitzpatrick, Barkley's hurt for New York. They're just the Giants, I should say, since they played the Jets. They're just, a dumpster fire at this point. The Lions and the Jets are looking once again like 2 of the worst teams in the league. I'm telling you, the Broncos are not very good. These are all games they should win. Now, should with a team that is still learning and they're young and they're so inconsistent is very, very tough. I'm just saying in a perfect world, they win those games. There's your 9 wins. So if they can beat the Chargers or the Raiders, you have 10 wins. That's the way I see it. I know there's so many of you right now listening, and I know I'm going to get an earful for it, that are like, that's absolute BS, Colin. You are so full of it, and you're going to be completely humbled when probably this week when they play Las Vegas. And to that, I say, you are probably right. I've always been more optimistic when it comes to these things. I just look, and it's really easy the rest of the way. I just think you look at the start and the teams they have to play, right? Dallas, arguably, hate to say it, one of the best teams in the NFC. One of the best teams in the NFL. Tampa Bay, Super Bowl champions, right? Who would they play? The Chiefs. I mean, those are 3 games we had to go through. That's tough. We had to play a Panthers team that's playing, they're overachieving. Should have beat the Niners. That's a game they're going to be kicking themselves for. But the rest of this is pretty simple after we get past the Raiders and the Chargers. They play the Lions in between. They got to win that game. I mean, I'm just saying the path to 10 wins is there. Regardless of that, That's shooting for the moon, obviously. High expectations. If they get 10 wins, yeah, they're probably going to make the playoffs. Seems unlikely. But regardless, it's going to be a good time for Jalen Hurts to learn and the rest of the team because they've played the best now. They've seen really good defenses. They've seen explosive offenses, many. I mean, maybe possibly three of the best, definitely three of the best offenses in football between the Cowboys, Buccaneers, and Chiefs. So once you come back to earth and you play a team like the Raiders, who have Derek Carr and Henry Ruggs, you have to deal with Darren Waller, obviously, and you have to stop the run game, which they weren't very good at, but generally they are good at that. So it seems like a game they can win coming off of so many tough games. But the problem is, if you remember the Eagles, really the last couple years, they like to play to the level of their opponent. It's so infuriating. It's something that just makes me so angry that happens. They play really, really well against really good teams, and they give you just enough hope. Dang, if this would have happened, or if they just had one more drive or started earlier, they could have had it. And then they turn around and you're like, okay, well, they play the Lions this week, and they like either survive by kicking a game-winning field goal or end up losing to the Lions. And it's like, what just happened to the team that played the Buccaneers last week? And I can't think of a more perfect example than that than when we played the Dolphins last year. And literally all we had to do was win that game and then our last game to get to the playoffs, right? And it's the Dolphins, and they were bad. They were bad. And we lost badly with that stupid trick play. Yeah, you guys remember. That was terrible. That's like what comes to my mind with this stuff. So definitely I can see us getting disappointed by one or multiple of those games I just named. I mean, realistically, we're probably going to split against Washington if I had to guess. New York could be the same way. You never know. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, they play the Saints too. I forgot to mention that game. They got the Saints on the schedule as well. That's kind of an interesting game. We'll cover that one when it gets there. So that's, I mean, realistically, I like them I think they can get 8 wins. I really do. And I know that's a big ask in itself. 8 and 9 for this team seems ridiculous the way they've been playing. But I truly believe the hardest part of their schedule is done. Now let's see what these kids can do with the easier stuff. And as I said already, this is a tryout, especially for Jalen Hurts, but a lot of these guys, because let's do a pick check real quick. The Eagles they got their own pick, obviously, next year in the first round. They have Indianapolis, which Indianapolis is doing so spectacular right now as far as being so mediocre and just good enough that their playoff and Super Bowl hopes are alive and they keep Carson Wentz playing because we need that 75% mark, right? I mean, he's played in how many games now? 6. So 75% of 16 would be 12. So I'm guessing 13 games, somewhere in there is what we're going to need him to play. They're on track for that. They're doing pretty well, halfway there, as far as getting just under halfway there, as far as getting that Colts first round pick, which is very important. And if you're an Eagles fan, you should be rooting for the Colts just enough. You know what I mean? Because you want them to keep thinking they're going to make the playoffs. And that way Wentz keeps playing, because the minute they can't, Wentz is done. They're going to shut him down because they're going to save that pick so they don't have to give it to us, essentially, is what's going to happen. Even though Wentz is still going to be the starter probably the year after that, shutting him down, save the first round pick. But if they're just good enough, and that division sucks just enough, it's great, just enough, they suck just enough, that Indianapolis can either just sneak into the playoffs or just miss it. And that's right where Eagles fans should want them. The best case scenario would be them just missing the playoffs, or really keeping in Wentz long enough to play those 13 games and then just losing out. Because after that, it's our pick. We want the Colts to pick as low, as in closer to number 1 as possible, right? That would be the ultimate plan. So yes, keep rooting for the Colts if you're an Eagles fan, and keep rooting against the Dolphins. Last week was a huge game for the Eagles because they have the Dolphins first round pick going into next year, and they just lost to Jacksonville, who now hold the same record as Miami. In other words, Jacksonville will now be picking behind Miami, which means we moved up a spot in the draft. Miami is looking great because they're looking terrible. That's great for Philadelphia. So, they're a bottom 5 team right now, which is a top 5 pick for us. And there's a lot of season left, and I actually don't think Miami is as bad as they're playing. But hopefully they are, and if that's the case, we're going to have a decent pick plus our pick, and then hopefully Indianapolis pick. Could be looking at 3 first-round picks, and 1 or 2, depending on how bad we're going to be, are going to be decently high. And this is why, if you're an Eagles fan, I think you should be rooting for Jalen Hurts, because in my mind, at least, it would be nice to know the quarterback position's in good hands, that we have the guy that we want at the helm, because then you don't have to waste a pick on a quarterback, and it's still a gamble. You know what I mean? I mean, how many quarterbacks don't work out in the first round? I mean, you can think of 100, at least a dozen right off the top of your head. I mean, Josh Rosen is a great example of somebody that didn't work out. How about Robert Griffin III? I mean, the list goes on and on. So Johnny Manziel, regardless, I would rather not have to take that gamble if Jalen Hurts is the guy. So if we can lock that down over these next few games and figure out, Jalen Hurts, plays well enough, at least I think he can win us games. Let's focus on stuff we actually need. For example, offensive line help is always great. Always great if we can get some offensive line help, especially since these guys are getting old. I don't know if you guys remember Jason Kelsey was going to retire like 2 years ago, and he's still playing. Brandon Brooks is hurt every single season. Lane Johnson is hurt every single season. They're great when they're all playing, but they don't play together that much. Need offensive line help. Would love to grab the biggest, baddest dude in the top 5 as opposed to a quarterback. That's my personal opinion. Let's get an offensive lineman. Let's get some help there. Also, defense. You can never have enough help. Linebackers specifically, but, defensive line, who knows who's going to keep playing, who's going to retire, who's going to leave. Can never have too many defensive linemen. Cornerbacks are the same way. There's just so many other big areas I think the Eagles need addressing before adding another quarterback and going through that all over again. I think we finally have a decent wide receiving core. It's not perfect, but I think, Devontae Smith, I got to still have faith in the guy. There's not a lot of chatter about nobody not having faith in him, but have faith. This guy's legit. He'll come around. He'll come around when the pass game starts picking up again, hopefully through the run game. Sorry, said I wasn't going to say that again, but he's still there. I think Rager, if he stays healthy, he's a perfectly fine number 2 or 3, because Quez Watkins has been overachieving. This guy is incredible. Not just like his speed and ability to get open, but man, he's got hands. He's got hands. He's smart, keeps his feet in bounds. It's really fun to watch a guy like that develop in front of you. I think the receiving core is in good hands. And, you add Goddard to that as well. Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell to the backfield. It seems like the weapons are there and they're developing. They're young, which is great stuff. Jalen Hurts is young. It just feels like that core as far as the attack is there. Now we just need some guys to help block and a defense. That's my opinion. And that's why I would rather spend the picks on that stuff as opposed to a new quarterback. Another thing I want to talk about real quick before we get to the last segment here to talk about predictions is the Eagles lost. I shouldn't say lost. They traded. It sounds like he died when I say it like that. He's not dead. They traded Zach Ertz, the best tight end the Eagles have ever had. I tweeted out earlier all his records and accolades he's had for the Eagles. He had an amazing catch in the Super Bowl. He's done so much for the city of Philadelphia. Really, like, he's just a really stand-up, awesome guy and was such a great player for Philadelphia. And it sucks that this is kind of the way it has to go, that this is just the changing of the guard. I don't disagree with the decision. They get a cornerback out of it. They get another pick. And Ertz gets to go somewhere where hopefully his talents can be revived on a team that is really, really good in the NFL. And I know that there's no bad blood between anybody. He took out an entire page, either in the Players Tribune or something in Philadelphia, where he just thanked Eagles fans for everything. I know he loves Philadelphia. He's going to love coming back. The first time he comes back to Philadelphia, I guarantee it'll be standing ovation. Everybody's going to be happy to see him. So really awesome having Zach Ertz here and getting the experience to watch him play, and wish him nothing but the best going forward in Arizona. And hopefully the Eagles can do just fine with, Goddard, and will really let him shine now that the stage is his. So thank you, Zach, and good luck. So first late game for the Eagles next week. We're coming off of now 10 days rest, going into Sunday and the Raiders. I kind of touched on it already. I think this is a sneaky, sneaky good team. And it's another game that if the Eagles are just going to let them in and keep them in, it's going to end bad. It's going to end bad. This seems like a really good time to turn the tables and pick up 2 wins in a row. Before heading into November and facing the Chargers. Because if they can beat the Raiders and they can beat the Lions, all of a sudden we're sitting at 500 going against one of the better teams at this point in the NFL. So how do we do it? I think you can exploit, I hate to say it, but you can exploit the pass defense of Las Vegas. Hurts could be in for a really big game. He could be in for a really bad game. It just really depends on the play calling as well. Just because it's so tempting and it's so good to go for this against a pretty lackluster pass defense, doesn't mean you pass it every single time, because if they see it coming every single time, they're going to defend it. So open up the run should be the number one goal. I'm not saying you need to run Miles Sanders to the ground with 30 carries or even 25, 20 carries, but you need to give him and Gainwell